This is Pod Strangely Warmed, a place where we tell the good Methodist story, where we have conversations that invite followers of Jesus to seek after that loving, just, and free world that God imagines for us all, and have a little fun along the way. When we have people on the podcast is we know that ministry is this amazing gift from God, but it doesn't always express itself in the same kind of high, holy, kind of sweet ways that we might expect. There are great things that happen in ministry. There are bad things that happen in ministry. And there's just some weird stuff that happens only in ministry. And so if y'all would mind sharing with us something today, you can pick best, worst, or weirdest moment that has happened in ministry.
In the podcast or in ministry?
No, in ministry. I mean, This may be one of your best, worst, or weirdest moments. I don't know. Probably weirdest, but right, hopefully not worst.
Well, there's so many things that come to mind. One of the best funerals that I ever went to was for Gil Farrell. He died, and it was one of those beautiful settings I've ever been a part of. I didn't lead anything. I just was there to bear witness to this guy, what he did in the 60s and 70s for this conference. It was remarkable. In fact, I kept his bulletin, and I am modeling my own future funeral on that because it was really powerful. One of the weirdest things that happened to me has been whenever you ask the congregation for supplies for VBS. We asked for glue. And a congregation member says, I've got all the glue that you could possibly need. We have about 250 bottles. I'm a kindergarten teacher. I was like, this is great. Yeah. And they brought over all the glue bottles, and all of the glue bottles had roughly 1/4 of an inch of glue in all of the bottles. And it was not at all, it was great. And so then what do? You unscrew, and then you pour all the glue into, it made 7 bottles. We had 7 bottles of glue. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is
the non-glamorous parts of ministry.
Not at all. Yeah. One of the best parts of communion I ever had, there's a young kid, and he would come forward, and he'd always have communion, and he would ask for communion for his friend. And I'm like, absolutely, because everybody's welcome at communion.
Absolutely.
So I gave him an extra piece of bread, to which he immediately turned around, and he pulled a stuffed frog out of his pocket and proceeded to feed the communion to the frog. And I thought to myself, well, there's something quite beautiful that this kid wanted to bring his most sacred friend to this most sacred meal. And I to this day, his name's Benjamin. He's a sweet little kid. I doubt he still has that frog, but that was one of the best moments of communion I've ever had in my life. I could riff on this all day long.
That's awesome.
I mean, we can keep
so
going.
Good.
Yeah.
I would say the best at my church, the best would be when I got married there. And then my daughter got married there.
Well, for me, I think the best time would have been when we first got together, all the churches, and we had that first service together, and it was just fantastic. The worst was, I think, when the flood came to our church. And we had to decide what were we going to have, pews again or chairs? And I'll tell you, I wanted chairs. And I told everybody up, I said, I want to have chairs, but you know what? We're going to be equal. We're going to be fair. We're all going to vote about it. And so everybody, we had discussions and so forth. I even, during the time that there was no pews there, brought in chairs, and I would change them around different ways to show people this is what we can do.
This is the flexibility that is available to us.
And so what happened was when we voted, it ended up being more pews. People wanted more pews than the chair. And,
okay,
but
go back.
You gotta tell. You tell that story.
Mr.
You go ahead.
Morales?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Morales was from one of the other churches,
From La Trinidad, yeah.
And he got up and gave this eloquent wonder, and he has this voice that you just would stop and listen to him do anything. And he got up and just eloquently talked about the beauty of the building and the stained glass and the architecture. He went on and on. And it's like you were like, where are you going? And then he said, I think pews. And then he went on about pews and the importance of pews. It went over. And I just looked over and he was like, because it was
Armando just lost.
I know, I did. He said one thing that I couldn't believe, but it made the difference. That everybody voted for pews after that. He said, this is not an office. This is a place of worship. And because he said that, I said,
but
what?
You got to understand, he stands up, he's got the beautiful white hair, he's very distinguished, and he was standing up there in this commanding voice, and I can remember, I was sitting next to Sherry, and Sherry went, Never. Well, she said, I think we won. And I went, I don't know. We'll have to see. And she goes, who would say no to him?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. He's bilingual, so he said it in
Okay.
English
Oh,
and
yeah,
Spanish.
yeah.
He
So
dropped the mic on you in both
That's right.
languages.
That was it, man.
You know how every seminary professor or board of ministry person tells you that the best sermons are the ones that you internalize and you don't have to rely on your notes.
Oh,
and,
sure. Yeah.
That becomes your preacher goal.
Right.
So I decided 1 week, that was my preacher goal. I was going to do that. I was going to preach without notes, and I just went cold turkey.
Okay.
And I decided that would be the day. So I roll in. I had a 2-point charge at that time. I roll into my first church, and I walk in. Oh, I should tell you, we also had I think he was about 24 months, about 2 years old at the time,
Okay.
a 2-year-old.
Yep.
So we roll into church, and the accompanist is out. So there's no accompanist.
Okay.
And everyone in the little country church looks at my husband, who knows that he plays the piano, and they say, Todd can play the piano. So now Todd is playing the piano. I'm preaching without notes for the very first time, and we're tag teaming with our 2-year-old. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
I'm going to.
You got this?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do this. And so we get him settled with goldfish and Legos and all the things. And I go to greet the church and call everybody to worship. And this is the Sunday that the district superintendent comes to worship. Husband on the piano, Legos, goldfish everywhere. And I said, well, if I can do it today,
Right.
I will have no excuse ever not to preach with notes. And I did it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's my little feather in the cap. But we did have to sweep the goldfish up later. So keeps you humble.
I think one moment that stands out is probably one of the best moments in ministry. I got the call that a church member, this is about 6 or 7 years ago, that her husband was on hospice, and there could have been maybe hours or minutes left for him to live. I was available, so I went to be by her bedside. I asked her to share with me about her husband, about their marriage, and they had been married a very long time, and I said, can I pray with you? And I was holding his hand, and she was holding his other hand, and we stood and we prayed. And as we opened our eyes, the gentleman, he opened his eyes and looked straight ahead. It had a half smile. He closed them when he took his last breath. And it was such a holy, I could feel the Holy Spirit in the room. It was so beautiful. And she looked to me and she said, like almost for confirmation, like, is he gone? And I said, yeah. And we just stayed in that moment. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. And if I would have been even 5 minutes later, that would not have happened like that. And so holy moments that we're invited into is a sacred space. And I'm grateful. So that's probably one of my favorite moments of ministry.
One of the great privileges that we have.
It is, yeah.
Invited into that holy space.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Probably the weirdest one for me was around a funeral. And this family I had known, I had been close to forever, but that we had actually a funeral service at the crematorium.
Oh, okay.
In the room for the crematorium.
Okay.
There are about 8 of us, and here is, the deceased in the box, and
getting ready.
And we went through this, whatever we had decided we were going to do, and I just remember when I left that room, the funeral director looked at me and said, well, I've never done that before. And I said, I've never done that before either. So families are very interesting when it comes to funerals, of what their expectation is and what they'd like for you to do. And that was really one of them for me, I think. One of the funniest at Trinity in Arlington, we had a church-wide work day, and everybody came up to clean up the outside and the inside, and we were all very busy, and the next day was communion. And so we go in, and they take the communion stack of cups and set them on the altar, and we get there, and we open the top, and there's no juice in it. And so we just set it aside. The second row didn't have any juice, nor the third. And they sent Jim Chandler running across to the 7-Eleven to pick up some more grape juice. And what we found out later is that while we were all cleaning the church, one of the parishioners' sons got in the kitchen and found the juice. Oh. And he had communion all morning while we were working. So that was probably one of those experiences. And seeing Jim Chandler in his robe go running over to 7-Eleven, they probably thought he was holding the place up. I don't know. I need juice. I need juice.
When I started working for the church, there would just be all these surprising moments that, now kind of seem normal. But
Sure.
I started texting my mother, and I put a hashtag on it so I could pull them back up later. Hashtag working at a church. Okay. And most of them are around, unfortunately, funerals, where just strange things. And I always tell people, don't look at my Google history, because it's things like a family would ask, can we leave the casket overnight? I'm like, I'm pretty sure you can't, but I need to figure out why. I need to tell you why not. But so Googling, can you? And I was like, what would you even search? And so
I think, I have a lot. Like, I have, in every category. I'm over here chuckling to myself because I'm trying to figure out which one to share. In black church, if you're a black preacher and you can't sing, you're looked at like,
oh, it's trouble.
Yeah, it's a leper. Like, why are you? How did you? And
who
so,
let you in here?
Yeah, right. So I really felt like I needed to learn how to sing. And then I don't know if you've ever been a part of the services where the celebration and the preacher is kind of tuned up, and so we call it hooping, and it's a style of preaching. And so I wanted to hoop so bad out. And so I had access to the church. So I would go into the church and I'd go practice. I'd go practice. And I went to the church and I got an opportunity to preach. And I said, I'm going to give it to him. I've been practicing it. I think I'm going to do it well. And so I'm preaching and I'm serious. Like, I got my manuscript. I'm ready to go. And I get to the point where I say I'm going to hoop. And I try to do it. And the whole congregation just burst into laughter. Every single person, it seemed like, burst into laughter. It was the last time I did that. I never tried it again. I was like, if I could be flush, I was like, oh my God. And it became the worst sermon in my mind, anyway, that I've ever preached. And, it was a terrible experience. Oh, terrible.
I might have a worst. It would be on the list. I just thought of one. I've been working at the church now for a little over 2 years. Spent most of my career in the corporate world, and so the behind the scenes view is most of what I see now, and it kind of takes you out of the moment, as you can imagine. And there was it was Good Friday, and I was in the studio during the service. It's a very somber, moving, powerful service. But I was in the studio, and so I wasn't in that moment. And after it was over, I walked downstairs, and I ran into one of the pastors in the hallway who was just shook, And I said, "Are you okay? What's wrong?" And I went, "Oh, I know what's wrong. Jesus just died." Right. Come on, Allison. So that was awful.
I was waiting for the moment in the story where you come down the stairs and there's Tim Brewster all sad and solemn, and you go, "Tim, good job," and go to high five him or something. But
it was about that bad. It felt like I just thought, oh my goodness, and did I just ruin that person's moment of Good Friday? So
my family was going through a really rough time at one point, and some of the good, sweet church ladies. Said, we're going to bring you food, okay? Okay. And, I try to resist those things. I don't want to receive the food. I mean, I'll encourage you to be in ministry to other people, not to me, right? Mm-hmm. My family's got some dietary issues. Like, I'm gluten and dairy free. I've got kids that can't eat, that are dairy free. I mean, we got troubles. And so we go through the list of, like, mostly we're gluten and dairy free by the time you condense us all into one thing. And, they needed clarification as to what that meant, right? Mm-hmm. Can you do this? And what about this? And what about this? And we went through the list. And as the sweet little old lady's getting ready to walk out the door, she turns to me and says, y'all make it really difficult to be nice to you. I'm like, I know. I didn't ask you for this. I was apologetic in the beginning of this. You don't need to bring me food. You asked to bring us food. And, I don't want to have you make food and everybody go, well, nobody's going to eat it. And so you make it hard to be nice to you.
Best, worst, and weirdest.
There's a story behind that smirk.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know if this is... I don't know if this falls in weird. It was just funny. I don't know if this is qualified. I'm just sort of accessing right now that summer camp I went to.
Okay.
Why did my brain go to summer camp as well? Like that's
what's
weird. That? My brain automatically.
Yeah,
went to
I just told that story, and so at that same summer camp I was talking about a minute ago. When I was in, I guess, high school, they invited you to be a counselor on work crew for the middle school.
Okay.
And so my job was to, I don't think this is answering your question. My job was to make the mud field. So it was me and 3 of my buddies, like we were all 16 years old, and we were on the work crew for the middle school thing. And our job was to make a giant mud field for the mud games that were going to happen the next day. And they gave us like a rototiller and a hose and a big field in Kansas. And it's just torturous work. And we went out there and we're just frying and we just want to make it fun. And so we got this rototiller, and sure enough, it'll take off and run over somebody's foot and do all the things that happen when you give 16-year-olds a rototiller. But we finally got the place all tilled up and it's all muddy, so we can play the mud games the next day. But one of the things we did, because we thought it was funny, was dig these huge, huge holes, like several feet deep, huge holes. But you can't tell because it's a big mud field. It's just all smooth on top. So we thought it was really funny, put the rototiller away. The next day they played some game where all the kids, there'd be people in the middle, it's like tag, and then all the kids would run from one side to the other, all these middle schoolers. Me and my buddies just sat on the side and watched middle schoolers just disappear, just gone. Oh, no. They would just go running and then no more middle schoolers. And I think now that's the day I wanted to go into ministry.
Yeah.
That was the day that I was like, I think God is calling me to this. I could do this for a job. I don't know. That was the smirk. That was what I was laughing about.
That's fantastic.
No more middle school.
Right. I was just gone. Just gone. Not that tripped up, just disappeared.
Oh, gosh. All right, so we took a group of kids from Queens on a missions trip to the Netherlands.
Okay.
Like you do.
Like you do.
Mm-hmm.
I know that sounds weird, but we were trying to redefine mission trips for urban kids because they're not going to go fix anybody else's house. They were like, we got to fix our own. and so we would go and we would do like we had a basketball team, and so we would do like basketball clinics. We had a group of dancers, so they would do dance clinics for about 2 weeks. We'd take them. And we had a partner organization, and they would like hook us up in different places. But we would stay in a local church. And so we're at this church one night, and I was exhausted. I was so tired. This is like, I don't know, maybe 8 days in, and the kids were really, they're getting wonky. They're getting real, like, interesting. We have kids all over this church building. Like, they're in the pastures, like, they're sleeping. There's stuff everywhere. And so, like, I find my little corner, I set up my sleeping bag, I'm in there, and one of the girls comes in and is like, Minister Akila? I'm like, yeah, she has some, like, really ridiculous question. I was like, listen, nobody come and wake me up. Like, don't wake me up if there's not a fire. Like, seriously, y'all figure it out. She's like, okay. So I go back to sleep. A couple minutes later, I'll say an hour later, Minister Akila. It's like, is something on fire? No, but the police are here.
Oh, no.
So I get up, and
walk into the main room, like the sanctuary. All the chairs were gone, and there was just sleeping bags. There were boys and like it was crazy. And the officer goes, "Are you in charge here?" I was like, "Yeah." And this was like the biggest Dutch man I'd ever seen in my life.
Right.
It's like 3:00 in the morning. And all my other leaders are out cold. And we had a basketball coach. He could sleep through. We knew this already. He could sleep through anything. He's in the middle. He didn't even know the officer was in the room. So I go over to him and I shake, "Coach, coach." And he sits up. He goes, "Oh, yeah." And he, for some reason, hits his chest, and baby powder, like, poof, from his shirt. The kids had been pranking people who were asleep. And so they thought, let's trick Coach and put baby powder in his shirt. So when he wakes up, like, poof, and he does this, officer goes, "Why are y'all in the building?" Well, we're from New York, and like we're here doing these clinics and worship services. And he was like, "You have to call somebody from the church." I was like, "Really? Do you think we would have broken in?" I'm like, "Wait a minute, how did you know? How did you know we were in the building?" He said, "I kept driving by and he kept seeing flashes because the boys figured out how to hook up the church's projector to video games, and they were projecting it on the wall. And so when the officers went by, it looked like somebody was in the church, like flashlight, like something was happening inside. So they circled, and the kids saw like somebody was circling, got scared, turned everything off, and dived. So then the officers were like, somebody's in there, they're breaking into the church. So they came and knocked on the door, and the kids wouldn't answer. So then they were walking around the house, and the kids got nervous and came to wake me up. So I'm standing there, and the guy was like, "You have to call somebody." And so I had to call the deacon of the church at like 4 a.m. because now it's like later because he's trying to figure everything out. I'm like, "I am so sorry. Oh, there's a really big officer here, and he doesn't think we're supposed to be here." He's like, "Put him on the phone." He goes, "They're missionaries." I was like, "Missionaries? Yes, we are.
Yes, we
They're
are.
missionaries from New York. They're supposed to be there." The officer was like, "Oh, from New York." And then he proceeds for the next hour to tell me about his experience in New York City when he came with his family. And while that's happening, I just eyeball the coach, and I'm like, this means round them up.
Yeah.
So the officer left, and we were like, "Guess what y'all are going to do till sunrise?" We made them clean everything up. Like, take this, go ahead, clean the bathroom, go ahead and clean the kitchen, because you're apparently not sleepy.
No.
Our boys had a basketball game. Like, "We're going to be really tired for our game." Like, that's how the cookie crumbles, friend. But I got to tell you, it was hilarious when the coach woke up. It was like a cloud of smoke. So that was the worst thing in ministry.
Okay.
And the funniest.
And
sometimes now it's the best. But it was the worst at the
but in the moment, you're
In the
like,
moment,
"Oh,
yeah.
sweet Jesus."
We both started our ministry, our professional ministry in New York. And so this happened at one of my churches in New York. It was Sunday, and I was raising up the elements to consecrate them. And at the moment that I was raising the elements to consecrate them, pizza delivery guy walks in and says, "Pizza's here." And I just like, all right. Like, I'm sitting here holding up, like, I'm just like, okay, all right. And we had a couple of missionaries who were speaking. And so we had guests, and I was just like, normal. This is normal. This is all normal. So yeah, thanks for that. Well, I was thinking one of my best moments in ministry, I'll give you a sappy one now. One of my best moments in ministry was I had a little church up in the Catskill Mountains in New York, and it had been 15 years since they had had a baptism. And when I was assigned to that church, there were 8 people, and they were all 70 years old or older. And I thought the only way that we are going to have a baptism in this church is if I personally produce a child, which wasn't going to happen right about then. So, and we had a pregnant couple come in, join us throughout their whole pregnancy. That baby was born, and the whole church celebrated like no one's business. And on the day that he was baptized, there was this movement of the Spirit, and everyone reached out to touch these tiny little toes. And I mean, we walked that baby around for a long time. And it was just this moment of utter and absolute joy and recognition of there's a reason why we're here. and I think sometimes we miss sometimes what the reason is for why we're doing what we're doing all the time. So, and as a younger pastor, that was a formative moment for me.
One of the best moments for us personally, another sappy moment, was as a clergy couple for us to be able to baptize our son just at a few months old. And Jen was so excited about baptizing our child that she inadvertently forgot to allow me a chance to pour any of the water over him. And so, yes, so we it was a joint effort.
You said some things. You said some of the liturgy, so
Yes.
I mean, come on. But yes, I took over a little bit with that, and I got the pouring on the baby's head. So, but yeah.
Take that with heart.
So my first church that I served also was very small, but one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen is that they developed a relationship with the recovery group Alcoholics Anonymous that met in the fellowship hall, and the church community would go as folks celebrated their kind of milestone anniversaries, and people from AA actually joined the church, and we saw lives turned around and hearts changed like I have never seen before. But seeing, again, our octogenarians encouraging and cheering on those younger generations and just physically being present for them. And again, that led to several baptisms that changed the church. And as people joined from the fellowship hall and a journey of recovery, but actually coming to Christ and joining the church.
Amen. One of my weirdest moments in ministry connected to district level ministry was at First Mahia back many moons ago when Brad was the pastor there. And I was the young adult, like 19-year-old young adult on the district committee of something, right? And Brad was the chair, so the meeting was out in Mahia. And I drove from Waco out to Mahia, and I'm pulling in, because I'm 19, I'm pulling in right as the meeting's getting started, right? Coming in late, coming in hot. He's told me it's in this wing of the building. And apparently there's 2 large classrooms side by side in that wing of the building. I can't remember what it's called anymore. One was hosting AA. And one was hosting Brad's meeting with Clifton, the DS, and all of that. And so I walk into the first room that has people in it because I know I'm always going to know Brad. And I begin to look around, and we're going around the circle, and it's, "Hi, I'm John." And, we're having that naming that happens there. And we get to me, and I became the butt of all of their jokes for the next little while because I'm Daniel and I'm in the wrong room. But they took that with incredible grace and made a lot of fun of me. Brad told me they continued to poke fun at the goofy kid from Waco for a while there.
But one of my favorite, best, worst, weirdest, the weirdest thing is that last week, right before I was about to officiate a wedding, I got a text from one of my graduated seniors. She's at Georgetown, doing great, and just a single line text, "Does God smell?" No context.
That's awesome.
And so we over the course of, because I'm busy, she's busy. Over the course of a week, we have a conversation about whether or not God has a sense of smell. Does God have any of the senses? Does God sense dead people? Because there is a sixth sense. We all saw that movie. And so we had this whole long conversation, and then last night preparing for this, I shoot her a text that's like, "Hey, I'm talking about teen mental health. Is there anything you really want people to know?" And she fires off with a really lovely paragraph about her perspective on mental health in the church. And so at the end of my "Does God smell" conversation, I had a really lovely moment with a student. And those moments happen all the time in youth ministry.
So you were talking about God smelling, and I was thinking
does
what
he
does
stink?
God smell
Yeah,
of?
does he stink?
Is the student asking if God has BO?
Maybe she meant the question in that way, but I took it as does God have a sense of smell? Yeah, probably. Yeah, those are things that theology school doesn't prepare you for, but happen all the time.
I love it.
That's so good.
Some of the best are just the people you meet along the way and that you're able to share. We've had those conversations. I still today, as I travel, I go and I sit at the bar, and I've done more ministry sitting at the bar at Chili's than I have in a small church somewhere. The people that are coming to church, most of them, you still have to do ministry, but it's a different kind of ministry than you do someone that's been offended by the church or someone that has questions. They don't ask you the same questions there as they do, sitting there as they do in church.
And they ask you what you do, and you can be like, instead of being like, I'm a pastor, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry for what I said earlier.
You get that sometimes too, right?
So it's either whenever I was in high school and we were leading a trivia as part of our pancake supper, and so I was reading the questions, and it was a question about Paul and the Gentiles. And I read it out loud. I was like, Paul's ministry to the Gentiles, and I saw faces like, that word didn't sound right. The Gentiles. I was hearing Gentiles in my head. I was saying genitals out loud, and I said it about 15 times, and people were like, can we? I was like, no, I got it. I'm going to get it. Genitals? Genitals. Gentiles. What was I saying? And that was my first foray into public speaking. Couldn't have gone worse, so it's just all uphill from there. It's either that one or the time that I was leading a service and communion. So we're offering communion, and people are in line to get communion. And as most folks do, they come forward, they leave their stuff on their chair, and someone had left their phone on their chair, and their phone went off. And this was 10 years ago when everyone had a ringtone that was like a song or something. And so on full blast, I hear over the music, over everything, Queen's Fat Bottom Girls start playing in the middle of communion. And I could tell immediately whose phone it was by their face. When their face just got real big, it's like, oh, I know whose phone that is. And as they came forward, it said, the body of Christ broken just for you. That was a good time.
My weirdest moment in campus ministry was towards the beginning of the school year. So there's lots of new students coming in and out. And one of my existing students had invited their date from a dating app to come and meet them at the Wesley as their date. And when this person showed up, then I came and introduced myself and did my whole spiel. And I said, hey, do you want to get coffee sometime in the next week? And they thought that I was trying to infringe on their Tinder date. Yeah, but now he plays bass in our worship band. So it turned out okay.
All right, my best moment in campus ministry has been meeting a student that never grew up going to church. We do a milkshake event at the beginning of the semester every fall, where we just invite students to come chat and hang out. And met her there, and she grew up in Texas. I said, "You never been to church once?" Like growing up in Texas, she said, maybe a funeral, maybe. And it was just a great year because a couple of weeks in, she had started coming to Wesley. And then there was one particular Wednesday night where I normally don't do this, but I said something near the end of the service about, if you're interested in learning more about what it means to follow Jesus, right? I did the thing of, I want to talk to you, come visit me. And she was in my office the next day. She said, I want to learn more about this unconditional love of God because I haven't experienced anything like that. And so we kind of took the slow route and spent some time the rest of the year reading through the Gospel of Matthew together, asking questions, looking for answers. And then it was just a joy because in the spring semester, she had decided she wanted to be baptized, and we got to do that in a local church. Again, I feel like this is not just something you did while you were in college. This is something like a lifelong commitment into something much bigger than even just a Wesley. And I got to celebrate that. It's just one of my best favorite memories of campus ministry. So
it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I was preaching one Sunday. So I preach in the Family Life Center. So it's like a big gym. And so it's a very casual service, and we have kids running around and all of that. And during the sermon, I had this little girl come up to me. She was like 5 or 6. And she came up to me while I was preaching, and she had a little sticker with her, and she was in kindergarten, so she couldn't quite read it all the way. And so she walks just straight up on stage, interrupts me during my sermon, and asks me to read the sticker for her. And it was the best thing ever. And her mom was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And I was like, the day that a kid is not comfortable interrupting my sermon is the day I'm walking out. Like, and so I stopped and I read her the sticker, and the thing that was so cool, and I don't remember what the sticker was. I also don't remember what I preached on, but I do know that the sticker related to the sermon, and I was like, this is amazing. So that was cool. Definitely a best for me.
That's fantastic.
Okay, so this was really weird, and it was long before campus ministry. It's when I was doing music ministry, and I was at First Baptist Church of Winters, Texas, as the minister of music and education. So every year, the area would have the area music festival, and it's the kind of deal where like you don't even have to tell them ahead of time. You can just, whoever wants to from whatever church can get up and sing, whatever group, solo, play piano, whatever. And this poor little lady comes walking up to the microphone. She had to be 95 years old. And she's wearing like that square dancing, like country and western denim skirt with the vest and she handed the sound guy a cassette tape. Now, keep in mind, this was in like 2006. And she's like, I'm ready when you are. And he hits play. And it's and it's this long intro to this like really upbeat country song. But before it's time for her to come in, the sound system starts eating the tape. Right? And she's like, that's okay, just try again. So he rewinds it, plays it, same thing, gets a little bit in and starts eating the tape. Well, just try the other side. I'll do the other song. So again, it eats the tape. She tries a fourth time. This time she's able to get into where she starts singing. And this whole time I'm just sitting here watching and I'm like, am I being punked right now? Like, this is not happening. And everybody in the room is just like, okay, we're waiting, you know? And so she finally gets this tape working. She gets to the part where she's supposed to come in singing. And so she starts singing. And then a few hours later, it starts to eat the tape again. But she's decided she's going to keep going. So she decides to try to stay on pitch with the dying tape. And so she's singing this song and she's trying to go to, and then finally it just stops playing and then she leans into the mic and says, I guess I'll just sing it Acapulco. And she just, with the awkward interludes and the pauses and like there's supposed to be something happening here, but it's not. So she's standing there awkwardly until it's time and she's counting the bars in her head and we're all just like, okay.
Oh, gotta love it.
Sweet old church ladies. That's beautiful.
Gotta love it. Acapulco.
Oh, yeah.
I did think of one more thing. I don't know if this is good or weird, and sometimes it's both.
Yes?
Yes. Let's go with yes. So I was doing, again, this is a theme. I don't remember what I was preaching on. But right before I started my sermon, I just cleared it out, and we did red light, green light in the middle of a service.
Nice.
And I was like, okay, guys. Again, we're in a gym, so it's kind of casual, but I'm like, okay, guys, let's try red light, green light, but like walking red light, green light. Yeah, okay, let's tell a bunch of kids they can't run in a gym. So we did red light, green light. And
Squid Games at church.
Yeah, during the service. And it actually went really well. But like as I was noticing like the children coming towards me, I remembered that there was like an altar and candles like behind me. But everything worked out. I just want to know, like,
red light,
I went,
red light.
And I was like, red light, like, stop. And but luckily, nobody caught on fire. The candle was very solid, and everything worked out. But I mean, it was cool, weird. But we got a lot of comments on that, and I thought that was super
nice.
Fun. Yeah,
that's awesome. Kids engaged in worship.
Yes,
is a powerful
Absolutely.
gift, no matter what form it takes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's nothing like standing before a choir loft of 50 singers and an orchestra of 40, and just waving my arms a little bit and having them make just some amazing music. There's nothing like that. Campus ministry is just a ride. I mean,
Oh, I've thought of one. So my very first appointment, which was not that long ago, I was at First United Methodist Church of Round Rock, and we did Christmas Eve for the first time, like full on after COVID, and that was my first experience as a clergy doing Christmas Eve, and that sanctuary is huge, and I stood up there and I got to help kind of light all of the candles, and as it all went up, and then on the balcony. That was a moment that I will never forget. And that was my first time as a clergy. I had done Christmas Eve services forever, but as a clergy.
# preacher's kid.
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember in that moment, I was like, okay, yeah, this is definitely where I'm supposed to be. And this is a moment I will never forget. And it was super powerful to stand in front with just the other clergy in that moment and to watch all of the candles and everybody singing Silent Night. That was by far a best moment for me. And I that is an image in my head that I will never, poor memory.
Yeah.
Never ever forget, for sure.
The opposite of that for Christmas Eve for me is one of the years at Keller, like Round Rock, giant sanctuary, thousands of people, thousands of services. You're dead on Christmas the next day.
Yeah. Right.
One of the things that we had that was a very common practice, we still do at Martin today, is we had a green room for everybody who's got to be there for multiple services, right? You got food where you can just snack and do all that ahead of time. One Christmas, we were there 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 11 or some kind of crazy, something like that. And we got to about 10 o'clock, and I'm getting ready for the 11 o'clock service. I'm like, okay, it's fine. I'm going to go eat. I hadn't had anything. I'm hungry. I'm tired. I go and I eat, and all that's left are these just kind of random odd bits of stuff in the tray of the cold cuts.
The olive loaf.
Well, no, I mean, it was ham and turkey and pepperoni, but it was the cheapest cut thing that could be available. Nobody went to the deli for this, right? It was and
great
so I'm
value.
I'm like, okay, fine. Eat it, don't think anything about it. Do worship. Go home, finish wrapping whatever we got to do at midnight, 12:30, for kids the next morning. At 6 a.m., the kids wake me up. By 7 a.m., I am puking my guts out.
Oh, no.
I got food poisoning in the green room on Christmas Eve. Just chucking like crazy. But we have April's extended family is at our house. My extended family is at our house. It's all at our house because I'm the preacher and we had Christmas Eve worship and they're trying to be kind to me.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to sneak out and go, hey, good to see everybody, but I look half. The good part is they expect me to look half dead because I was up till 1 o'clock in the morning the night before. So, and then sneak off to go throw up in the corner and then come back around and, engage in family.
Oh, no.
I've paid very close attention to the temperature of the cold cuts from there on out because apparently they'd been out since about 5 p.m. And it was, it wasn't good.
I don't know if I'm just a magnet for the weirdest of the weird. I got a call at Colleen one time, and somebody wanted me. Their house was haunted, and they wanted me to come bless their house, and of course I did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Why not?
Grabbed a friend, Evan Duncan. He's a Baptist pastor, and we went and we blessed their house. I don't know. Never heard back, so I don't know. That's probably the weirdest. I think one of my best was actually in the Bahamas. When I used to do a mission trip there, Fairmount, and Caitlin, I baptized her. It was actually, I think, a reaffirmation of baptism. So maybe learn some lines. I'm sorry, Bishop. But in the ocean, and it was really funny too because there was two people. There was Gary and there was Caitlin, and the tide was coming. It was really intense. And for some reason, when I baptized Gary, the water just stopped and just right down and right up. And then when we went to dunk Caitlin, then all of a sudden the water just got crazy and we couldn't do it. And at one point she quit. She started to walk out and so she started to walk out of the ocean and I actually grab her and I wish it had been on video. I grab her and it just stops long enough for me to just dunk her and get her back up. And now she's a pastor in the Central Texas Conference. So
nice.
Wow. That was probably one of the best moments. It was pretty cool.
Forced baptism.
I'm gonna get kicked out of this.
Right, that's it. No, I remember when we were baptizing Dylan at Glen Lake Camp, right? So it was, we'd hired him to be the youth director before he'd ever been baptized. Probably not, again, sorry, Bishop.
The best thing that has happened to me in my ministry happened this week.
Oh, nice.
Where I got a student of mine who had zero interest in religion, zero interest in anything theological to apply to seminary.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So
that's so cool.
This week he will be applying to Wesley Theological Seminary, where he will prepare to start a master's degree in theology and international peace and conflict resolution.
Nice.
Yeah.
The world needs more of that.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
That's awesome.
A couple of years ago, we had a mission trip to Colorado, and there was this weird thing where someone stole the catalytic converter, I think I said that right, off of our church bus. And they also cut something else in the process, and we were out of commission on that bus for about 6 months. And so we had to rent one, but you couldn't rent one because the military had rented all the 15-passenger vans within the state of Texas to take them to the border. Not going into that, but we needed a bus and we needed to get to Colorado. And so we borrowed a bus or a van from another church, and we made it there. But on the way there, a tire blew out as we were in Colorado, and we were about 3 hours away from our destination, and we were planning on meeting them for dinner. Shout out to John Wesley Ranch in Colorado Springs if you need a place to go. And so we were just 3 hours away, and we definitely didn't have a youth that was unbuckled right above the wheelbarrow.
No,
and
none.
my husband definitely wasn't driving when this happened. And so we were really lucky that the van didn't roll or anything bad didn't happen. But we definitely made sure to wear our seatbelts the rest of the trip. And when we took in the bus, they said, "You're really lucky that worse things didn't happen because all of the wheels needed to be replaced." And we had picked it up from the shop where they had just replaced the air conditioner. So I was really confused about why they didn't check the tires while they were at it. And then when we took it in to be serviced, to have the other tires, we took it to good old Walmart. Sorry, Walmart. And they called us, and they had ran into one of those giant yellow...
The pylons?
Yes, the concrete things that you're supposed to see and not run into.
Right.
And so not only had we borrowed this bus, they had smashed the side of the bus door and had a giant yellow streak in it and had dented it to where it couldn't close. And so by the grace of God, we had the whole week, because we weren't going anywhere, to get this bus fixed. And we had taken it to a man, and he used a plunger mechanism to unstick the door, and we were able to make it home. But we had to call the church and apologize to them and also get new tires. So the connection is really great as long as you have a mechanic check the entire vehicle before you go.
Dry rot on the tires is no good.
Right. But the beautiful part was that it was a very memorable story. It happened on the way there, so we weren't exhausted already. I mean, the kids still talk about it today. So we did it, and we made it through that mission trip.
Nice.
All of my ideas kept coming as you were telling your story, but I think the one I'm going to settle on is it's best and worst. So we did a mission trip to Appalachia Service Project, and I need to clarify that this is at a church that is not this church and is not in our conference, because that will apply later. So we had a pastor who was delightful, is a delightful human, but was not necessarily the most popular person at our church. And I knew that if people got to know him, he would be much more popular. And so I said, "Why don't you come on this mission trip with us?" So he came. And much like anytime you're renting mission trip vans, there aren't enough of them wherever you are. And so we ended up renting Suburbans for that trip. And we had 3 Suburbans. And I was in the office putting paperwork together, and all of our kids and leaders are loading the Suburbans for the day. And I came around the corner, and my pastor is literally wringing his hat in his hands, which I didn't know was a thing that people actually did. I said, "What's going on?" He goes, "I broke the Suburban." I said, "What do you mean you broke the Suburban?" He was like, "Well, we're putting these 12-foot 2x4s in the thing, and I closed the tailgate, and it cracked the front windshield from the inside." And I was like cracked? And he was like, "Oh, it's spiderwebbed pretty good." So I walked around, and sure enough, there's a ding in the middle of the windshield, and it's spiderwebbing out, but it's not all the way through, and it's not impeding driving. And so I called whoever we had rented from and talk them through it, and they ask all the questions. And so, we went to our mission sites. They went to their mission sites. We came back at the end of the day. And one of the things I always ask the kids is, where did you see God today? And what was your favorite part of today? And we were just laying around having that conversation and had the deep spiritual moments. And then those were past. And now we're just goofing off and laying in hammocks. And the kids were like, Lonnie, what was your favorite moment today? And I said, y'all, it is not at all deeply holy or spiritual, but the moment when my boss had to come and apologize to me for breaking something on mission trip was extraordinary. And the kids who were there were like, oh, you should have been there when it happened. He said a lot of words and they were not about Jesus. And so for the rest of the time, the time that those kids were in youth group, anytime stuff just happens in life that's not the best, and sometimes you need an expletive of some sort to say. And rather than yelling curse words, they would literally yell Keith words. That is what they would say instead of swearing on youth events. They would just all yell. They still do. They're 25 now, and they're all
yelling Keith words.
Yeah, hit their hand with a hammer and yell Keith words instead of an actual swear word that makes any sense to anyone.
I always end up with the kids that are fully willing to embrace their weirdness, and I love it. I cherish it more than anything, because when I see them doing it, I know that they feel safe, they feel loved, and they feel appreciated for their sheer genius. Because here's the truth. Everybody is really, really smart about something. You just got to figure out what it is. And sometimes I end up with students on mission trips that are really, really great at pranks.
Oh, gosh.
So, I've gone to this place twice, the same church that has hosted us, and there's this night that they have there. And they have the students, of course, it's a knight in shining armor type thing that's 5 foot tall. So they feel the need to move it around and do things with it. And one night I walked into the bathroom and I was like, someone's in the toilet. And I was like, absolutely not. They did not do that. And I opened the door and they had done that. And I knew that they were expecting me to get mad or have an answer or response of any sort. And I was just like, no, this is normal. This is normal at this point. And so the next morning they were like, did you get to go to the bathroom? And I was like, of course I went to the bathroom. Yes, the night is in there. Please move it back when you're done. And they were just shocked that I understood that that's part of it. Weird things are always when students play pranks and they expect me to have anything other than I love you. Please clean it up when you're done type thing. I find that so endearing, because it's a love language for me, because they're not trying to harm anybody. They're trying to impress their genius. And honestly, the night on the toilet at midnight at night was just, I love that student so much, and the students that helped him with it, because I just know that it was a group effort. Right. And there's nothing as odd as walking into the bathroom feeling like something's in the bathroom stall with you and knowing you're on the 3rd floor so nobody broke in, because it's the 3rd floor of the building. And just knowing that they moved the night. You just know it. You check to make sure because you're a little nervous, but yeah.
Okay, weirdest was when Socks the cat decided to come in to worship.
Okay.
In the middle of work. Socks, this was this black cat with white feet that lived in the neighborhood, came into the sanctuary in Georgetown, walked along the railing across the chancel, and sat there and looked at the congregation. That was maybe the best and the weirdest all at once.
Pretty cool.
It was very cool.
We had to chase a squirrel out of Meridian one time.
That's a little creepy.
Yeah. Well, and the squirrels in Meridian were like rat squirrels. They didn't have big fluffy tails. So they had mangy tails, and so it looked like a rat rather than a squirrel.
Yeah,
but it had somebody left the door open, right? Radical hospitality will leave the door open. The squirrel jumped in, and people were trying to chase it and out this other side.
Ooh, the worst was when we had bats in the building.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So the annual, hey, let's wax the floors. Oh. And they left the doors open, because fumes, right? Yeah. It's time for the back to school breakfast. That's Sunday morning. And we get there, and there are bats all over the children's area. There are bats all in the sanctuary.
Yikes.
We had to shut the whole building down, move across the street. That was my worst right now. I was like, okay, so we've had cats and we've had bats. I'm really glad that elephant doesn't rhyme. Or nothing else really rhymes. Maybe
Well,
gnats.
you have rats.
I could do rats. Well, we do rats too. Gnats.
It doesn't rhyme with bat, but we had a problem with skunks at our church.
Oh my! Oh my!
Yeah, underneath the children's wing and the preschool wing, which ironically was called Noah's Ark Preschool. So we, of course, had to make a joke that, obviously we were welcoming of all the animals, including the skunks, but not the greatest.
Yeah.
Especially for big worship and gatherings as a church community. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about my very first youth mission trip with Hearst, and we went down to Waco, and we were working with Mission Waco down there, and we stayed at their little dormitory, and I guess it was a very old building, lots of plumbing issues, and so for my very first mission trip, about the third or fourth night, this girl came running out of the girls' shower area, and she was screaming, "There's broccoli in the shower!" And sure enough, so everybody clears out, and then they go in, and there's water just rising in the downstairs dorm of Mission Waco. And sure enough, there's broccoli and other things that we had for dinner that night were coming out of the drains in the shower. And
You took that turn.
This is the pathway that we're on, which is unavoidable now. And so the plumbing is backing up, and the way that's arranged is the guys' showers are upstairs, and they're still showering, so there's still water coming, and it's just rising, like the water's just filling up, and starts in the girls' bathroom, and then all of a sudden we realize there's water in the kitchen, like it's everywhere there's a floor drain, it's coming up, and I spent the 2 hours that night sweeping. I mean, there was broccoli in the bathrooms. I'm not going to tell you what was coming up through the floors in the kitchen. And they said, well, there's a thing out in the yard. You gotta open it up, and you gotta clear out whatever's in there. And so I spent 2 hours that night, arm deep into a pipe, trying to clear and get water out of the dorm where we were staying.
You win, birthday boy.
The crap we do for Jesus.
That's it. There you go.
Yeah. This has been Pod Strangely Warm. If you enjoyed our conversation today, know that you can find us anywhere you find podcasts. On Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, any and all the places, we are there. So if you want to continue the good United Methodist conversation that you've been a part of today, find us, like us, rate us, review us, and share with a friend so that the good news that is happening right here in our own midst can amplify even